So many of you may have seen some absolutely ridiculous stuff on the internet recently. I mean, when is there not ridiculous stuff on the internet? But now more than ever, there's been some truly ridiculous stuff floating around, especially about COVID-19. Welcome to Scientific Drinking. My name is Mas, and on this episode, we're going to be talking about COVID-19 conspiracy theories. Cheers. All right, so taking this a little bit more seriously. Oh. So I got a little bit of something for my patients, because talking about this shit's enough to drive anyone crazy. Yeah, we'll let that sit a little bit. So there has been absolutely no shortage of conspiracy theories cycling around about this coronavirus. Granted, this is an absolutely unprecedented event, and I don't really need to tell you that. But what you might know is all of the absolutely ridiculous conspiracy theories cycling around the internet. And trust me, this took me to some pretty weird corners of the internet. It's weird, some of the things people come up with, just weird. So we're gonna address some of these conspiracy theories, not necessarily in any order, but address them one at a time by themselves and just kind of talk about them a little bit, maybe work through this as a group. You know, this is a group effort. We're communicating, we're working through our problems. All right, so the first of many conspiracy theories is that the US developed the COVID-19 virus as an attack against the Chinese. Now, that was one of the earlier conspiracy theories that cycled around, where it seemed like China was taking the brunt of the COVID-19 pandemic, or at the time, just an epidemic.
So get your facts straight.
Well, at this point in time, it should be no surprise that the frequency of these claims has dwindled down and pretty much gone away, especially since the United States has been facing the brunt force of the coronavirus over the past month, taking on way more infections than China has at least reported. As much as I love to talk about ridiculous US conspiracy theories, the United States is not the only country to generate conspiracy theories. No, in fact, the Shah of Iran himself is a originator of a new conspiracy theory, or at least he was, claiming that the COVID-19 virus was genetically engineered specifically with Iranian DNA in mind, designed to attack and kill Iranians above anyone else in the world. It should be clear that the Iranians are not especially susceptible to the virus. And now we're moving on to what is currently the most popular conspiracy theory, that Bill Gates and Anthony Fauci somehow conspired to develop and engineer a virus in China in order to release the cure and sell it to the general population to cure everyone.
What?
In fact, that conspiracy video has been shared 900,000 times. Let's talk for a minute about Bill Gates. We can address these claims one by one, but I wouldn't, because other people have done that already. But let's just take a broad look at this. The motivation for Bill Gates to make a whole bunch of money selling vaccines to people after engineering a virus for them. He is rich as hell. Why would he want to make even more money? He donates most of his money already to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is the major contributor to the World Health Organization. Another idea is that he and Anthony Fauci have worked together in order to shut down the government so that they can buy up the stocks and get rich. Although there are some people who seem to be guilty of insider trading, Bill Gates and Anthony Fauci don't seem to be one of them. Furthermore, there are plenty of ways a guy as smart as Bill Gates could get rich without killing people. Damaging the economy is actually kind of a bad way to get rich. Now, this also kind of ties into Anthony Fauci's hesitance to adopt the drug known as hydroxychloroquine. Hydroxychloroquine is a drug that's already been available for quite some time, and preliminary trials may have seen some positive benefit to treating COVID-19 patients with this drug and seeing an improvement. However, follow-up studies have not been able to corroborate this result.
Will people listen to scientists?
That's the way science works. You have a study, you publish that study, and it gets peer-reviewed. If you get lucky, you get to duplicate that study, which doesn't happen as often as it should. More on that another time. Not to mention the fact that medical companies are definitely not going to issue their drugs haphazardly if they can help it. That's how drugs get abused. And that's how drugs are being abused today. Things like opioids, codeines, and all kinds of drugs like cough medicine that you can get over the counter and abuse them at home. Furthermore, we don't know all the side effects of hydroxychloroquine when combined with something like the COVID-19 virus. You require a lot of testing to verify these drugs. It takes 12 to 18 months for vaccines to get cleared. Same with treatments. It takes a long time for these things to be made viable and safe to the public, because you need to test them in all different environments. The human body is extraordinarily complex. In fact, it's astonishing we exist at all, given the number of mechanisms and chemical processes and everything that goes on in our body. In some ways, you really don't know what you're gonna get when treating one patient compared to the other. That's why you have to do a lot of trials and compare across a large sample size in order to kind of get an idea of how most people react to the drugs. That way, when you give it to someone, you can understand the chances of a side effect happening and warn them accordingly. That's how you avoid lawsuits. To fast lane something like hydroxychloroquine, which has mixed results at best, and market it as a COVID-19 treatment or cure would be absolutely disingenuous, especially because we can't cure viruses. We can only treat their symptoms or prevent them through vaccines. But let's get back to Bill Gates. One of the claims was that Bill Gates was funding research labs in Wuhan to do research on bats to determine and create a new coronavirus to release on the public. Now, despite the fact that we've already talked about him not really having a lot of motivation to do that overall, considering he's already one of the richest men in the world, let's focus on the practicality of that. So first of all, we have no proof that coronavirus comes from bats. We have a suspicion, and that suspicion is based on other coronaviruses coming from bats in the past. However, the closest match after the virus got loose was that of a pangolin. Even more studies show that maybe the coronavirus came from dogs. In fact, we don't even know for sure that the coronavirus even originated in Wuhan. We just know that that was the original hotbed of the infection. Alright, so now we don't even know where the virus came from. Do we even know that labs didn't create it? Yeah, it's really close to that one in pangolin, and these things happen all the time. We had the Spanish flu, which propagated all over the world, killing millions of people in 1918. We had multiple pandemics since then, including one in 1968 that killed a lot of people from Hong Kong, over 1 million in fact. And of course we had the SARS epidemic, which killed tens of thousands of people earlier this century. Naturally occurring pandemics like this are actually relatively common and happen all the time. And with the increased movement of people all over the world, it was really only a matter of time before this happened. So to have these suspicions that someone went through the effort of genetically engineering a coronavirus that would naturally occur on its own in a matter of time anyway, with almost 100% certainty considering how closely related it is to other coronaviruses and the one discovered in the pangolin and now in dogs, it's absolutely no surprise that this happened and that it's naturally occurring. It doesn't require any real leaps of creativity or imagination to think that this happened naturally, while it takes a lot of effort connecting thumbtacks with red twine on your wall to put together some kind of picture that looks even reasonably believable.
Take a look at this.
Jesus Christ, that right there is the mail. Now let's talk about the mail. Can we talk about the mail?
It's just really not worth the effort. It happens by itself. Humans are really good at dying. Really, it's a matter of Occam's razor. The simplest answer is the most likely. And in this case, the simplest answer is naturally occurring by a long shot. The next conspiracy theory is it's my favorite because it is by far the most ridiculous conspiracy theory I've ever heard. And that is that COVID-19 is directly connected to 5G. That's right, the rollout of 5G, a radio frequency communications network, is directly responsible for the outbreak and spread of COVID-19. Lord help me with this one. What is 5G? 5G is a radio frequency information network secured in place by a series of geostationary satellites positioned all around the world. Now, geostationary satellites are very far away, but they operate at a range of between 3.3 and 39 gigahertz. Well, gigahertz is how many cycles per second a signal oscillates. A little bit abstract, right? Our sun generates these frequencies as well. But the sun doesn't just emit visible light. It emits infrared, radio, X-ray. It has an entire spectrum of energy that it generates. Now it peaks at the visible light, and such we have evolved to adapt to the visible light spectrum, but it also gives away radio waves. And indeed, it gives out radio waves in the same frequency as 5G, and indeed 4G and 3G and whatever G. So why is it that 5G is so much worse than the sun. Well, is it that 5G is so much stronger? The GPS satellites operate at about -125 to -130 decibels. Now that's a decibel scale is logarithmic, so that is a pathetically weak signal. And it takes a lot of effort to pick up those signals. In fact, it is astonishingly easy to spoof other telephones, other cell phones, other transceivers. That's why it's really illegal and why the exact frequencies are considered classified, because the military uses GPS signals and they don't want anyone spoofing their drones or their missiles or their aircraft carriers. That being said, from a fundamental level, it is a tremendously weak signal, and it matches the output of the sun during flares or solar events, which happen all the time. Just the average flare, an average solar cycle, gives off the same amount of 5G signal. Another tiny hiccup in this conspiracy theory is it's a virus. How would this exactly interact with 5G? Kind of difficult to think about it. That's because it doesn't. In fact, a virus is so small and a radio frequency so large that there's no real way they can interact. And you know what? The best part about this is this originated from a map that showed, oh, this is what the coronavirus distribution looks like, and this is a map of GPS coverage. Correlation does not imply causation. Now, but let's look deeper into this map. What else could be causing coronavirus? Could it be subway shops, KKK activity, power plants, a map of Pokemon in Pokemon Go, children in poverty, single people, Applebee's, dogs with heartworm, or maybe it's population distribution? That's what all these maps have in common. This is what the population distribution is in the United States. The denser the population, the more likely the virus is to propagate, because people are closer together. People spend more time in close proximity, and the virus propagates airborne through small particles that you emit while breathing. Now, what makes more sense? A government conspiracy to beam down 5G energy, a government conspiracy to beam down viruses on board GPS 5G satellites, or population density? Well, you tell me. Thanks for watching this episode of Scientific Drinking. I really don't expect any of you to have come up with conspiracy theories to be swayed by this, but it was fun talking about it. Cheers.